if I could, I'd get rid of both of them. I know I think.
Good afternoon, Rotary. Please open us up an invitation.
Sure. Let us go to the Lord in prayer. Dear God, thank you for Rotary and the opportunity for us to gather together to learn more good things about how we can do service in the world. Bless this food to our bodies and us for your service. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. So join me as we do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You will wait to be seated.
Feeling better. I haven't been but twice this year.
Thank you everyone for being here today, and I don't think we have any visitors other than our speaker, and Natalie will introduce him in just a minute. Scott, thanks for looking at me. Will you please do Happy Bucks? Sorry, I wasn't here. I was enjoying some sand in my
Sure. We'll do like last week, and we'll go through it in a Chris, what do you have about that?
Hold up the president, headed the other way, so I'm glad to have it back here.
Edie, what do you have about
I figured out that as much as I get to fish,
Happy birthday!
I want to pay together every time.
How's the weather, Daniel?
I'm happy about a good meal.
Good meal. 5709. What do you have about Emma?
Happy to be here.
Happy birthday!
Mega 360 because I can't get the code.
Oh, good. What do you have about? Happy to be here. Happy to be here. Happy to be here. All right, fellas, what are you happy about, man?
Happy for spaghetti.
Spaghetti. What are you happy about?
I'm happy that we got approved for the Community Foundation grant for backpack.
Fantastic. What are you happy about, sister? Thank you. I appreciate that. What are you happy about,
to
Tim?
meet this guy named Matt Freeman.
Just glad to be here. What are you happy about, Bill?
We did that down in
Yes, we sure do. What are you happy about?
We're like, we're happy.
I appreciate that. What are you happy about now? Happy to be here. What are you happy about, fellas?
Happy that Robbie had $1 for me to put in the bucket.
It's always good. What are you happy about?
I'm happy for Will Walls and his wife, man, for their first baby.
Oh, really?
When was born?
Tuesday morning.
You hear that, folks? He's happy that Will Walls has two babies born. Two more. What are you happy about? What are you happy about? Happy for Will. Happy for Will. What are you happy about? I'm happy to know you. What are you happy about? Sonny Walls not here, so you need to be. What are you happy about?
Big good.
I'm happy that I'm here.
Doubly happy. What are you happy about, man?
Happy to have being here with us.
We are too. What are you happy about? I'm happy to be here. What are you happy about, Mr. President?
I'm happy you go to the coin. At least it's a $1 coin.
Good meal, but I don't have to look for it. I have to clean up. That's right. All right, folks, what does this money go to do?
Good in the world.
Good in the world. Thank you all for sharing.
Thank you so much, Scott. As Robbie mentioned, we did get approved for the Community Foundation grant. Do you remember how much?
$1,500.
$1,500. So thank you, Robbie and Will, for putting that together. Are there any other announcements for the club?
Edie, when do we start packing back? Next week?
No, I don't know. I'm going to call, I'm sure that the guidance counselor, pardon me, needs time to identify the 50 children. And I just told Matt I would call the school and start that process.
Thank you.
That's how it works.
Here are no other announcements. I'm going to turn it over to Natalie so that she can introduce our speaker.
So how much are y'all going to jack the price up when it comes to
I'm excited for us to be able to listen to what Mr. Dean Hybl has to tell us today about 10 at the Top. He is the first full-time executive director of the program, which started in 2010. He has helped 10 at the Top earn regional and national recognition for developing connections, fostering collaborating, and building regional capacity across communities and stakeholder groups. Originally, Dean is from Keysville, Virginia. He is a graduate of James Madison University. He and his wife Susie have 2 children, Bethany and Nate. and they currently reside in Greer, South Carolina. So we're very happy to have you and look forward to learning more about it.
Thank you so much. Well, I am thrilled to be here. I was telling Natalie, and I don't know, some of you may remember, but I actually presented to this group back in 2011. It would have been September because it was the day after we unveiled our regional vision. Leon Patterson, who I'm sure some of you know, had me come here, so I recognized the space as soon as I came in. So it's glad to be back a decade later. Things have changed quite a bit around here and the Upstate. I always love coming to the city of Lawrence. You guys have done a wonderful job of building the sense of place here, and we'll talk about some of those kind of things. So I was asked to speak a little bit about my organization, but then also about the region and what's going on here in our communities, and what are some of the areas of emphasis as we look towards the future. And unfortunately, my crystal ball has been quite broken lately, so it's going to be kind of hard to tell you exactly what is going to happen, even by the end of today, much less in another 3 or 6 months. But as a region, there has been a lot of positive things happening in the Upstate, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of those, and then what we need to be focusing on. Unfortunately, let me ask the question: how many of you have been here in the Upstate for more than 20 years? Okay, almost everybody in the room, which is great. Hopefully, the reason you've been here for so long and stayed is because you know that this is really a wonderful place. I grew up in a rural part of Southern Virginia, and unfortunately, most of the people that I grew up with, we all ended up going somewhere else because there weren't opportunities. I think one of the challenges that our smaller communities across the country have is being a place that people want to live, especially as you're younger and raising a family, and then want to continue being in and have career opportunities. So I think y'all are in a good spot, close enough to Spartanburg and Greenville, that there are jobs and opportunities, but also far enough away that you don't have some of the struggles that those communities deal with. So I think you're in a great spot here, and hopefully, so when we started 10 at the Top, we knew that we weren't necessarily, our role wasn't to fix the region isn't broken, but we know if we want to continue to be a special place, a place where people want to live and raise their families and retire, we need to make sure that we're paying attention to some of the things that in other places just happen to them, overnight, and then they wake up and say, what happened to my wonderful place that, we used to have? And so one of the things we do know, while my crystal ball is broken, I do know that population growth is happening here in the Upstate, and it will continue to happen. Between now and 2050, the United States is projected to add about almost 100 million more residents, and most of them are in 10 what we call mega regions across the United States. And we live right in the middle of one. The Piedmont Atlantic region is the third largest in the United States in economy. It runs from Raleigh-Durham down through Charlotte, through the Upstate, down to Atlanta, over to Chattanooga and Birmingham. And so we are in a very, advantageous position for growth and for economic growth as a community. And what that means is that's where people are coming. And as I said, I grew up in a place that is very rural and very dying. Nobody moves there. So, you want to be in a place where there is vibrancy and there is growth, but you got to pay attention to that. You don't just want it to happen to you. So specifically, looking at the Upstate and the growth, all of our counties, including Lawrence and Spartanburg and Greenville, all the counties are projected to see population growth between now and 2040. And a lot of people would say these numbers are very conservative, especially in a place like Lawrence County, because of your close proximity to Greenville and to Spartanburg, you know, you are seeing some of that growth, especially the economic growth, seep into your county. And the reality is this growth is real. It is happening now. This is the United Van Lines National Migration Study. South Carolina is ranked number 2 in the United States. Who would have thought that Idaho is number 1? That would not have been my choice on the, you know, if we were choosing states, that wouldn't have been first. But I am not surprised that South Carolina is high up there. So the question is, and this is a question we've been asking for a long time, and I know Ernie, you know, with the county has asked a similar question when you were there, and still asking today, are our communities positioned to shape future growth rather than being shaped by that growth? And what that means is, are we being, you know, thoughtful and appropriate in our actions, and most especially for our organization, are we working together, are we collaborating across city and county boundaries on the elements of those issues that cannot be solved by one city, one county, one business, one organization? So the mantra we've had since the very beginning, and Natalie said we were formed officially in 2009. I came on in January 2010, but the concept of 10 at the Top, and you guys, I'm sure most of you know Jim Coleman, he was one of our founding board members, started really back in 2005. So this conversation's been happening for a long time, and it's that by working together, we can ensure that the Upstate is prepared to meet the needs of current and future residents and businesses. So just a little history of our organization. As I said, the initial concept started in about 2005, and we celebrate our 10th anniversary in 2019. So I mentioned the regional vision that we unveiled a little over 10 years ago, and that called for the 10-county upstate region to be universally recognized as one of the leading places in the United States to live, to learn, to do business, and to raise a family. And most especially, we focus around 5 what we call our driver areas. And they are human potential, economic and entrepreneurial vitality, sustainable growth, natural beauty and resources, and community vibrancy. And so what we do in the communities as an organization, we are not a service providing doer organization. We are a convener, a connector, and we help build the collective capacity of our region to work on some of these larger issues. And now the way you do regional collaboration, a lot of times, you know, it's not necessarily that you work on one big project across the 10 counties. It's that you work on small projects that are similar, and then each city or county works on some element within their community. I'll use community vibrancy as a good example. I'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. But your community here in Lawrence has received 3 of our Elevate Upstate grants, which is a grant program that we do through the generosity of Phil Hughes, who's a local developer that we started about a decade ago. And those grants are designed to help communities to grow their sense of place, their vibrancy. The first one that Lawrence received was for the Finally Friday music series that you guys continue to do now 7 or 8 years after receiving that grant. So you all have received vibrancy grants. We've actually awarded about 30 of them across the region. So each one is a very local program, but collectively they help the entire region grow the vibrancy of our communities by having all these different initiatives and programs within the various communities. So that's how you can build the collective capacity without us trying to create one super mega thing and create a lot of little things within your communities. And that's what we spend a lot of time doing. So I want to share with you a little bit today about kind of what we see and what we're focusing on across the region. And, you know, back in January and February of 2020, you can remember that far back, at the beginning of the decade, I was asked, okay, what is the emphasis going to be for the next decade? And it made me think back to 2010 when I first got here. And at that time, the unemployment rate in South Carolina, if you remember, was 11.5. The United States was over 10. The economic focus was on attracting jobs for workers. And the outcome was $17 billion in new corporate investment in the Upstate over the next decade. The Lawrence Development Corporation, the Upstate Alliance, all the others, economic developers did a great job of bringing jobs to the Upstate over the decade. So we fast forward to January and February of 2020, and the unemployment rate in South Carolina was 2.3%, 3.6% across the country, and suddenly the focus was attracting workers for jobs. And so it became about what are the barriers to employment for our residents. Instead of, we need to bring more corporate investment, not that we don't want that, but now it was about how do we make it easier for people to find employment and maintain employment. So we thought, okay, that makes sense, that's going to be the way things are. And then, well, I don't have to tell y'all then what happened. We knew there were some threats: sprawling growth, lack of abundant and skilled workforce, and then this thing that we call global disruptions. And of course, we had a major global disruption beginning in March of 2020 called the global pandemic. And just, some general information about that. Of course, we remember we went from 3.6 unemployment to over 14% by April of last year. People were staying home, schools closed, all those things that really changed the dynamic. And now, a year and a half later, while the unemployment rate has come back down, and I'll talk about some of the things we're seeing there, the reality is we're still in a little bit of that flux from the pandemic, and it has really made everything that we work on as communities something you've got to focus on the here and now and looking ahead to the future. It is not an either or. So our role throughout the pandemic has continued to be as a convener and a connector. And what we learned very early was, while historically we bring people together and we meet in person, this is now a virtual world, and we could do that without being in the same room as everybody. And so for the last 16 months, most of our meetings have been virtually. We started bringing people back in person in February and March of this year, and we've had small group things. We actually have a big event coming up at the end of this month. It's going to be an outdoor networking extravaganza at the GSP airport. But for the most part, we've done both in person and virtual. And then the other thing we realized that we played a role in is connecting people to information. So we worked very hard, especially early on. If you remember back to February and March of last year, or March and April of last year, there was a lot of uncertainty. We didn't really know much. We didn't know where resources were and things. So we created a regional repository of information so people could find the resources that they needed and were looking for. And we had, in the first month, over 100,000 hits on our website looking for links and regional information. We've continued to do that at some level over the last year. So we conducted a virtual listening tour of our 7 non-urban counties in the Upstate back in June of 2020 because we wanted to get an understanding of what specifically were the areas of focus in our non-urban communities. And what we found was that the focuses had not changed significantly despite COVID. It was still employment, access to transportation for residents, some of the other barriers. Of course, no surprise, broadband was a critical issue. We knew it was an issue of significance before COVID, but COVID made it very clear that that was something that was just critical. It is a valuable and needed infrastructure component for all of our communities. And like I said, I think we knew that before COVID, but it just really emphasized that. And job training remained important. And also, the desire of our communities to make sure that they didn't lose their vibrancy. And, as people were staying home more, how do you support your entrepreneurs and your small businesses and things like that? That, I think continues to be a challenge. And what we have done to relate to that gets back to some of the information pieces I talked about a minute ago, connecting entrepreneurs to the resources that are available for them to help in supporting their businesses. So we did this listening tour, and it really kind of validated that it wasn't like we had to blow up, what the focuses were across the region. It was that things were really consistent to what it was before, except some of the nuances had changed due to COVID and some of the specific challenges that had come from COVID. So what we are working on are a number of different things, and of course, so we had COVID going on and all that, and then last May we had the incidents with George Floyd in Minneapolis and a couple other instances of violence that included our law enforcement officers. And so we, as an organization that convenes leaders across the region, we said maybe this is an opportunity for us to convene law enforcement and community leaders so that we can ensure that our region is one where some of the violence and the demonstrations and things that we were seeing in other communities would not happen. How do we create a community where all lives, those of our law enforcement and of our community members, are valued equally? And so we started what we call the Safer Upstate initiative, and we convened about 50 law enforcement officers and community leaders in a series of discussions around what they were seeing, what were things we could focus on. And so now we have what we call the Safer Upstate initiative that is working on bringing together law enforcement and community leaders in a strategic and purposeful way to help build our communities and see that law enforcement officers and our communities, that they are all, everybody has a lot more similarities than they do differences, and how can we work together to make sure that we have a safe community for all. And so that has been an area we have focused on that was not on the radar even as COVID hit, but has been very important to our work. Entrepreneurship, I mentioned before, small businesses and supporting our communities is critical. And so we've created what we call Start Grow Upstate, which is a repository of resources for small businesses and entrepreneurs, because a lot of the challenge is, we get this, I've heard this in the 11 and a half, 12 years I've been here, there aren't enough resources for people who want to start or grow a business in the Upstate. Well, the reality is that is not even close to true. There are so many through our chambers, through Small Business Development Center, through SCORE, through many other entities. There are plenty of resources, but the problem is you don't have, a lot of people don't know where to go to find them. So we've created this repository to hopefully help with that. Then transportation, access to transportation is a big issue. Lawrence is one of only 7 or 8 counties in the state that doesn't have significant access to transit. So we've been working, Greenwood County just started public transit in July. Abbeville County is in the process of working on it. Cherokee County as well. And we've had discussions with some of the leaders here in Lawrence County about how to grow opportunities that help people have access to transit and to transportation. Then senior issues, by 2030, 25% of our population is going to be over the age of 65. So what I hear today, it's about 17 or 18% now, is there is not enough resources for our to meet the needs of our seniors today. So imagine if we're going to add another 150,000 seniors in the next decade, how do we make sure that we're meeting that need? So we have a group focused on that. We also have worked with the counties around their comprehensive plans, understanding how they fit together. Teach at the top around education, and the teacher shortage in the Upstate is a significant issue there. And then the community vibrancy piece I've talked about before. So looking to the future, what we're really focused on is how, as a community, can we move forward around those issues that are impacting access to jobs, and also the ability for all of our residents to have a good quality of life and meet their individual needs. And so we continue to work with communities. As it relates to COVID, I wasn't kidding. What was the deal at noon probably won't be the deal by 5 o'clock today. So, it's one of those things that is, we're totally, all have learned, I think, a period of flexibility that we probably, isn't comfortable, but I think we've now figured out we just got to kind of go with the flow. And we see, as 10 at the top, that our role is to understand and work. We have, and I'll mention it in a minute, a TAT Chat virtual meeting every other week where we invite a leader from within the Upstate to talk about a specific initiative or issues. And we really, initially, they were 100% focused around things related to the pandemic. Now, that is one of the topics, though not always. Today, we have V. Daniel with the Better Business Bureau talking about scams. So, but, we feel like that we need to be continuing to focus on what, in understanding what the continual changes of COVID is doing and how we as a region can need to be acting and reacting to it. So I mentioned the TAT Chat. It's actually this afternoon at 3 o'clock. So I was telling Natalie we're not going to stay here too long because I have to get back to do the TAT Chat this afternoon. But V. Daniel is our presenter this time. We've had leaders from across the region. Jeff Duncan, who is the House of Representatives member here, is going to be our speaker at the end of September. And we try to have someone of interest for each one, and you guys are certainly welcome to participate in any of those. We also do a reconnect. We started in April with these Friday morning coffee and donut sessions of no more than 20 or 25 people. We do them in our office area, but we also have done them in other counties. We've been in Abbeville, we've been in Spartanburg, in Pendleton, and next Friday on the 20th, we're going to be just off of Lake Greenwood. We're partnering with the Lawrence and Greenwood Chambers of Commerce to have a session there on the lake. Break on the lake, yes, thank you. At 8:30, a hot breakfast, and then the session at 9 o'clock. So if anyone's interested in joining us next Friday morning at Break on the Lake, you are welcome to come and join us for that. And what has been great about these small group sessions is, too often we end up doing what I'm doing with you guys right now. One person talking and everybody else listening. So what we've done for these reconnects is we do a square, and everybody, we have a topic, and we have topic leaders, but everybody is part of the conversation. It's turned out it's been great. We've had Justin Benfield, who you all may know, who is on my board, who is with Prisma Health here in Lawrence County, and others did a session on public health. We've had sessions on water, on jobs, many other different topics. We actually, is tomorrow Friday? Yeah. Tomorrow have one where we have Jim Shue, who's with Marcia McLennan Agency and George Shearer with Milliken. They're going to talk about employer benefits and then about COVID protocols for companies. So that's going to be at our office tomorrow at 9 o'clock. It's just a small group, just a chance to, for people to network and interact in a smaller setting. So we've been doing a lot of those lately. I don't have a slide for it, but we were talking earlier about on August 30th, we are holding the Brews, Blues, and Barbecue networking extravaganza at GSP Airport. And we're going to be in one of the big parking lots at GSP, and we're going to have tents, food, music from across the region, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have an expo with businesses that are our partners and within the community, and then networking opportunities, and we're going to have music and food. So blues and brews, you can't be, and barbecue, you can't be anything but good. So you're all welcome. That is a great event. It's the first time we've done it. We wanted to do something to kind of celebrate that we're back together, although I'm not sure we're all back together now, but it's outdoors, so we felt like even if something happened like has happened the last couple of weeks, it would be safer than doing a 300 people event inside. So if you're interested, you can go to our website, 10attetop.org, and find out about it. It's going to be a great event. Then we also started a podcast channel. How many people listen to podcasts? Well, check out our podcast channel. I just did one yesterday with Liz Seaman, who is a council member in Greenville County. Amanda Munyon, who, I don't know why she's not here. I heard she's one of your members. Did one with her a few weeks ago, and have done many others across the region. So it's a great podcast. Check it out. We also have the Start Grow Upstate podcast and the Upstate Mobility Alliance podcast. So we gotten into the podcast business during COVID. So ways to be involved, just being engaged in your local communities is so important, and then being engaged in talking about how what's going on in Lawrence County impacts and is impacted by what's going on in Greenwood County or Greenville County or Spartanburg. That's what it's all about. It's about communication and working with each other. And when we do that together, we can ensure that the Upstate remains a great place to live, to learn, to do business, and to raise a family. All right. Well, thank you all very much.
Thank you for reminding us how the Upstate can be connected and how we can all communicate together. And I really appreciate your analogies. I'm a pretty down-to-earth guy. For those of you, y'all already knew that. He didn't know that, but the gorilla analogy was excellent. Thank you. Your example also about controlling what you can control. I was actually watching some Duck Dynasty, surprise, surprise, the other day. And Phil actually made a comment. This is kind of a more recent, not on the show, but more recent comments. And he was saying the exact same thing. Why get worked up about stuff that you have no control over? Take care of what you can, improve, be the best person you can be, and that kind of thing. So thank you so much. We also, I always put a reminder up here because I always forget, we always get someone to sign a book, and then we donate this to a local elementary school. So if you'll sign that before you go, then we will be sure and donate that. Thank you everyone else for your questions. Don't forget that the cart bucket is up here for your donations. And thank you so much for everyone coming today. Thank you for those of you who will watch this later, especially Amanda Munyon. And also don't forget to check into Facebook or other social media that you were here at Rotary today. And email Leanne about makeups. Thank you for those of you who copy me on it, just so that I know. And appreciate everyone's great feedback about opportunities to be able to do makeups. Let's stand as we do our four-way test and motto.
concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
And our motto,
Service above self.
serve to change lives, Rotarians.